Hi there, Mark Bowden here, expert in human behaviour and body language, and I'm here with my good friend, my good colleague, Lucille Ossai. Lucille, let everybody know who you are.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Lucille Ossai. I'm a communications trainer, coach, and author of Influence and Thrive. I'm also the founder of Rethinking Business Communication blog and Limited, where I help professionals and leaders to hone their communication skills so that they excel in their careers and boost business results. I'm a bit obsessed about effective communication.
Well, you are. You absolutely are. And I have to say, I wrote the foreword to Influence and Thrive. Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
It's an excellent book. It's that book that has everything that you need in it. It's the kind of book that you go, everybody should have this because it means you don't have to read a whole bunch of other stuff. It's very, very factually accurate. It's very, very clear, brilliantly written. I do say, people go out and get that. And we're here because we want to have a look at this here, Body Language Decoder, which is by Martin Brooks, who actually you introduced me to. So thanks for that, Lucille. And you came up with kind of a great idea for this, which we thought we'd record, which is to go through some of the cards that Martin has and work out culturally how accurate or inaccurate or different might be some of the ideas that are put forward. We're not really critiquing what Martin's put down here, but just kind of adding to it, I would say. Anything else you want to add to that, Lucille, before we kind of go into our idea?
No, I think it would be really interesting to just know how culture plays a difference and a part in knowing how people perceive different nonverbal cues. So I think that would be really interesting. And I will be talking on my experience as a Nigerian in Nigeria and possibly, interacting with other professionals internationally. So I think that'll be quite good. Yeah, that'll be quite a good one to know.
Yeah, look, I'm relatively limited. I lived in the UK, like you, Lucille, and I've lived in Toronto, Canada, and I've worked all over the world. But you have a really great insight into Nigeria, maybe West Africa, even a little bit more as well. But certainly, UK business and worldwide business. So look, let's start into this one. Here's this one here, which Martin titles Space Invading. And this is about what I would call prosemics, which Edward Hall came up with, which look, the fundamental idea is the closer you get to somebody, potentially the more intimate it will feel and it will be. But there's a downside to this in that you might invade their space, be territorially aggressive. And so it could be aggressive. So either the closer you get, the more intimate it might be, but the more aggressive it might be perceived. Like, what are your thoughts on that? How different or accurate is that for you?
So I definitely agree about the closer you are, the more intimate you could appear to the next person. But however, there is a cultural dimension here in Nigeria. Yeah. And if you are seen to evade somebody's space, it's quite negative, especially if that is uncalled for. And it could almost be the sign of impending danger. Something is going to happen, something is going to erupt. And you will often see this between, before a physical altercation, the aggressor, the person approaching the other person is menacing and invades the space. And that could also be combined with a forced eye contact. Yeah. So the person comes really close and with intense contact, and even looking from a distance, that this is not going to end well. That possibly there could be a physical altercation or there could be something. And it almost always plays out that way. It almost always plays out, and it happens, when there's match traffic and it happens road rage and you see someone leaving the car and going to the other person and then coming very, very close. And you could almost see the tension in the shoulders and all that. I just know that unless somebody intervenes, it could very well result in a physical altercation. So here's a good thing. Yeah.
So here's my question for you is, so it's you and me. Okay.
Yeah.
And look, you understand my culture. You understand the British culture and the London culture, very, very well. But if I'm in Nigeria, how close can we get before somebody might intervene and go, hang on, this is that you're being aggressive, Mark, or intervene on you and go, you're being aggressive. Like, what are the boundaries?
Right. Okay. So I'll just use myself. So if I'm speaking and, business, it will be somewhat like that. Yeah. But if I'm getting that close and this is a no, it's probably not going to end well. Yeah. So that's probably a safe distance, hello, how are you? And all that. Great to see you and all that. Then if you're friendly with the person, it could be a bit closer. So it really depends on how well and how comfortable you are. And also I need to mention that there are different kinds of greetings and there are different kinds of ways according to the tribes that you come from.
Okay, interesting.
And all that. I think in Europe, you do the peck on both cheeks, and all that. Very European and all that stuff. And in some cultures in Nigeria, you could, sort of almost bow, you could sort of go down a bit like that just to show respect and to greet and all that. But when you're talking about the face to face and the body to body and getting that close, you had better be very comfortable with the person. Otherwise, it's not a good sign. It could be perceived as aggressive, especially if the person approaching has the intent of being of intimidating the second person, so that person will be perceived as the aggressor. And because of this fight and flight, the second person would probably square the shoulders and sort of brace himself or herself for what could come next. So unless you are comfortable with the person, the person well, please maintain a safe distance.
Okay. So better to be safe than sorry. Better a little more difference, because what it seems to suggest to me is things could escalate quite quickly if you get this wrong. Okay, lovely.
Especially when you pair that with the forced eye contact. That's really important. Yeah, because that also speaks to intent.
Here's one, animation. And what this card is suggesting as a generalization is the more animated somebody gets, the more likely they are to be truthful with you. And the less animated, the more they might be, lying to you. Now, I would say as a generalization, that's kind of okay. People, when they're under stress and pressure, they might kind of insulate themselves a little more. They might kind of tie themselves down a little more because they know they don't want to leak information. Having said that, just being animated isn't necessarily a good indicator of veracity of what somebody's saying. But give me your viewpoint on this and how this plays out in Nigeria.
Okay, so Nigerians are loud. I'm sure if you've met a group of Nigerians, instantly you know that we are Nigerians. We're loud and we tend to be animated. And I think also Italians tend to be quite animated as well. And they tend to use a lot of gestures. But we tend to do it, especially when we're among people that we know and trust. So friends, families, when we're hanging out in social gatherings and stuff. And because we are animated storytellers, even when we're recounting things, we tend to use gestures, we use the tone, we use like slang and so on and so forth. So that would be actually quite received. And we have quite a number of people, religious leaders who are very well spoken, who are articulated as well. And they tend to be animated, on, not really on the stage now, but basically when they're giving the sermon and so on. And some of the really interesting ones and the well-known ones are actually animated, especially when you're preaching the word, preaching the word and so on. So in my view, animated gestures and showing some sort of animation when you're talking tends to get you attention at the very least, especially if you know what you're talking about. So if you're an expert on a subject or you're giving a presentation or you're giving a speech and you're grounded in your content, you know your content, when you are animated, you use gestures and so on and so forth, you are perceived as being trustworthy and being credible. So it could be really advantageous to you. But on the flip side, politicians, especially those without calling names, especially those who we sometimes think should bow down and just bow out and just allow the younger ones, those ones tend to be a bit stiff. You know, you wouldn't really see a lot of animation. You would see quite a lot of speeches obviously being read from scripts, and there's just a disconnect, I would imagine, between them and what the average Nigerian would think about their delivery.
So
animation is good.
What that says to me is people often get this wrong, this idea of, hey, don't talk with your hands, it's distracting. And that, I think, is a nonsense. It's distracting if it goes in front of your lips. Okay, that is distracting because we do like to lip read. But there is this thing, and especially as you're saying in Nigeria, of somebody who is prepared to be animated must know what they're talking about, and they are actually perceived as having status, and I think that's important for people to know, especially when it comes to camera as well. Look, let's hit this last one here, because this one I think is great, which is pointing. Okay, and what Martin's card here says, and I think it's very, very accurate, is as a good generalization, pointing can be perceived as aggressive because, look, this is a sharp, pointy thing and potentially dangerous. And if I do this in your close proximity, it's just physically dangerous for a start. Right. Camera for me, not so bad. But I'm intrigued with your view on this, because I think it's an even greater signal in Nigeria. Give me your thoughts on it.
Okay, so you have to be really careful with pointing. Yeah, it's almost perceived as negative, almost as perceived as you're being accusatory. Yeah, so if you use the finger and all that, and depending on who you are directing your finger to, there's also the issue of social status. So if you're doing that to someone who perceives to be on a higher level than you, then you would come across as rude. Yeah. However, I have seen some time ago a lady, Ibukun Awosika. She's very well known in Nigeria. She's like the chair of the First Bank of Nigeria, one of Nigeria's oldest banks. And she gave a speech before a group of governors at the Governors Forums a couple of years ago. And in that speech, she was trying to hold them accountable. And she used the finger. And I found that really interesting because, number one, she was not a politician. She was, what you call a technocrat. She was a master of industry, and she was a woman. And she was given this speech in front of a group of predominantly male politicians. And she was like, what you would or would not do. And I just thought that was brilliant. That was bold and that was brilliant. So that's another way to hold somebody accountable, to just get them to reflect. And then culturally as well, it could be the sign that something could go wrong if you do not adjust your demeanor or if you do not back down. So it could be the calm before the storm. So I'm warning you, with the first eye contact and with the finger there. And you know that unless something happens, you had better just, tone down and just try as much as possible to de-escalate, because it could get worse. And then, of course, when you come to parenting, you warn your child, don't do this and don't. I use that as well. Yeah. So don't do this and don't do that. So it really depends. So you can use it intentionally to make a point, but I would advise you to use it with great caution.
Well, I love it. I love it when you do it, because I can see your whole body like click in and cascade into place, and a different feeling coming over you, which just doesn't happen to me when I do it.
Right.
No, it doesn't. I don't. It doesn't. I can wave that as much as I like, and I'm like, this doesn't really. I mean, it doesn't really mean the same. I can feel it doesn't have the same meaning to me as it has to you, which I think is extraordinary and fascinating. Look, thanks for those insights there. Really fantastic. If people have enjoyed this, let us know, and we'll do some more for you if it's interesting. Great product here. Great fun to mess around with. Here's Lucille's book as well. Get a hold of that. It really is fantastic. Grab that. Lucille, thanks very much for being with me, and thank you all for watching. See you all soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you.